let's fill a petal shape with a lovely tapered satin stitch effect. So we're going to do a series of stitches that angle down but towards the middle at the base of the petal. This applies also for if you're stitching a leaf or any kind of shape that comes in like this, like maybe a butterfly wing. We're going to start in the middle and work our way out as well. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you my really key tip, which is called the staggered stitch length method, and I think you're going to find it really helpful. So let's get started. Bring your needle up on the far end of the petal and then pull through all your working thread so that the knot is securing your thread at the back. Now let's work a long stitch right along the full length of the petal down to the base of the petal. So poke your needle down at the base in the middle, gently pull through your working thread, and hey, we've got our first stitch. Now let's start working our way out to fill in the right hand side of the petal. So just like with other satin stitch, bring your needle up to the right of that first stitch on the same edge. And then normally we'd bring our needle right to the bottom and poke it down. But what you might notice here is that we're going to have quite a lot of stitches coming in, and they could get a little bit congested at the base of the petal. So this is where my staggered stitch length method comes in. So what we're going to do is for this next stitch, we're actually going to poke it down a little bit short of the base of the petal. So let's go and do that. It's sitting nice and flush with the previous stitch, but it's a little bit shorter. So see, our first stitch finishes there and our second one finishes up here. Now let's do our third stitch. We're going to bring it up to the right again along that line. And this time, let's poke our needle right down at the bottom, just to the right of that first full length stitch. And what you're going to notice as we gently pull that so it sits nice and flush with the top of the fabric, you can't even tell that there's a short stitch in the middle, can you? Because my second full length stitch covered that up and it just looks so nice and satiny and smooth. So yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to alternate a long full length stitch with one or two shorter ones, followed by a full length stitch as we fill in the shape. And that will prevent congestion at the base, but it'll still enable us to have a lovely satiny effect. So we just did a full length stitch, so let's do one that's a bit shorter. Poke it down there. And then let's do another one that's even a little bit shorter. And I can see that directional line there is showing me how I want to taper my stitches. So that's really helpful. So let's just do another one just a touch shorter again. And then let's follow that with a long full length stitch. And what we're going to do, we're going to finish that full length stitch just to the side of our last full length stitch. And that means as we pull it through, it just covers up that staggered effect. Doesn't that look great? So there's no set rule to exactly how many short or staggered stitches you do. And honestly, it'll change no matter what you're doing. Anytime I stitch a petal, it probably turns out a little bit different, but you'll get a feel for it and just start mixing it up. And I'm sure you'll find it works really well. So I've done that stitch a little bit shorter again, and then I think I'll finish off with a nice full length stitch right down to the base of the petal on the right hand side. And look at that, we've filled in the right hand side of the petal and it's looking great. So let's go ahead and fill in the left hand side of the petal now. I'm going to bring my needle up at the top on the middle, just to the left of my first stitch. I could actually feel the knot on the underside then, so I worked my way around it, trying not to catch on it. Now I'm going to poke my needle down short of the middle of the petal. And then I'm going to do another full length stitch. No, I've actually changed my mind, and that's the thing with this technique, you can mix it up as you go. I'm actually going to do one that's just shorter than the previous, and then I'm going to need to re-thread my needle. I thought it might be helpful to show you how I do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my needle down towards the base of the petal. I'm not piercing the fabric, I'm just ducking it under some stitches there. And I know it's really sturdy down there at the base of the petal. So now that I'm in position, I'll do that again, but this time I'll leave that loop before I pull through all of the working thread, and I'll poke my needle back through that loop gently pull it tight. And now I could just snip off that tail, but what I think I'll do is I'll just tuck it under my satin stitches. I'll try and do that twice, and then I'll just go under a different set on that one, and then it's just caught the thread there, but that'll be okay. Now I'm just going to snip that tail off nice and close, and I might just snip that tail off a little bit closer as well. Got to go with the flow with embroidery. And now that thread's tidied away and I can start a new piece to finish my petal. Now, we've done a couple of staggered shorter stitches here. So let's bring our needle up. And then I'm going to poke it down pretty much into the same hole as my previous full length stitch. And that's going to mean it just really nicely covers that staggered effect. All right, so let's follow that up. Always bring our needle up at the top of the shape. And then down towards the tapered end, let's do another shorter stitch. Just be really nice and gentle as you pull your stitches nice and flush with the fabric. I'm bringing my needle up just to the left of that last stitch along the line. And then I think I'll actually do another, let's see. I just want to make a point. With this staggered stitch length technique, there's no exact method. So you can probably tell as I'm working, I'm kind of making the decision as I go as to how short or long to do each stitch. This gets a lot easier the more practice you have. So don't worry as a beginner if you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. Just try to focus on doing a full length stitch followed by a shorter one, followed by a full length stitch. Okay, so I did a shorter one. So let's follow my advice. I'll do a full length one again. I'm going to poke it down pretty much on top of the last full length stitch. And yes, that looks lovely. So it's totally okay if you go down into the same hole a few times. And that's all good with a tapered shape, but the reason we're doing this staggered stitch length method is so that we're not having to do that all the time and we don't get all congested at the base. So I've done a shorter stitch there, and now I'm going to do my final one on the left-hand side as a lovely long stitch right down to the bottom. You can always smooth your stitches out with your finger or with like the blunt end of a needle. I think I slightly pulled one there as I was stitching, so I'll just smooth that out a bit towards the base. There we go. And doesn't that look lovely? So that's my tips for stitching a tapered shape like a leaf or a petal. I hope you found that really helpful.